This video segment is a small part of what the market guys offer through their educational products and services. If you are interested in any of our trade alert services, or you would like more information about our one-on-one mentoring program, simply contact us at info@themarketguys.com.
Well, good evening, everyone. It is 8 o'clock on the nose, and I am ready to go. I hope you are too. We have a good group tonight. I'm looking and I can still see people signing in here. So welcome, welcome, welcome. I expect almost a record attendance because we have a special guest tonight that I'm going to introduce, and that would be Dr. Billy Price, who is a client of mine who I've been coaching for a while now, and I would like to give you an opportunity to maybe even ask him questions. We can do a Q&A for Dr. Billy Price, and we're going to kind of lay this up for you. Now, I'm not going to go through my regular market analysis because last Friday I put out a weekly market alert, a report rather, and I said that we would most likely pull back this week. We were already starting to pull back. You can see here from the volatility index as I pull this one up, I said that the volatility index would most likely start to rally because the signals were there. And you can see that today we had a pretty strong green candle on the VIX. You could see that down here where my cursor is, we had a cross on the stochastics. That's a buy signal. As I zoom in a little bit more, we see that the CCI is moving higher, and it is very close to crossing over that zero line. That's the momentum line. And so when the CCI starts crossing over the momentum line, obviously whatever we're looking at on the chart is going to be picking up some momentum. And if it's crossing to the upside, that means the buyers are moving in. Now, again, if you've been following the market guys long enough, you'll know that the VIX is inversely related to the S&P. So if the VIX is expected to rally, we could expect a sell-off on the S&P. And here's what I'm going to do. For all of you who missed our webinar last month, we had a really great session then, and what we did is I talked about, and this was exactly on March 23rd, we had our open house, which was the Monday after expiration Friday. And I'm going to go through that list to show you how powerful the technical signals were. Now, if you did not get in on any of the long positions that we were talking about last month, don't kick yourself, because I think this week's open house is going to actually be more important than the one that we had last time. So I talked about McDonald's, and the goal here was to be proactive and think of the companies that would do well in a national quarantine, or I could even say global quarantine, because McDonald's is worldwide. And I talked about being proactive so that you can more or less think ahead at where the money would be flowing. Now, these vertical lines that I put on the chart right here are what that was the day we did the webinar. So you can see exactly what's happened here after that occurred. Right here, the 23rd, look what happened. You had McDonald's trading right around 136. And today it closed at 181.65. Isn't that amazing? And again, the charts were telling us to get long back then. We were also talking about Johnson & Johnson, because Johnson & Johnson provides health products. Look at that horizontal line. On the day we were talking about it right there, on the 23rd, Johnson & Johnson hit the low of 109, and today closed at 151.61. Now, the other thing that I mentioned to everyone was that a lot of these stocks are high-priced stocks, and not everyone's going to be able to buy, X number of shares of Johnson & Johnson because maybe they don't have that much money in their trading account. But I'm telling you, folks, this is another reason to at least learn about options, learn about them. You don't have to trade them right away, but at least spend time learning about them and how you can get leverage. All right, because options is a way to level the playing field and have the average person actually be able to trade stocks that institutional traders have been trading. Talked about Netflix, right? Because why? Because people being quarantined, and what they were going to do? They were going to buy movies and watch movies from the home. And right there, the horizontal line was the day we talked about buying Netflix, and it was that day that the stock crossed over the 20-period moving average. Look at that. On that particular day, we had a closing price of $357, and it closed today at $437.49. Absolutely amazing. We talked about Walmart. Why? Because people were buying toilet paper, right? We're talking about that. Look at that. We talked about it on the 23rd. 3 days later, Walmart hit the low, and it rallied up. Right there, on the day we were talking about, the stock closed at 115. It now closed at 129.85. And for those who did get in on that stock, look at that bearish engulfing pattern today, right? That bearish engulfing pattern could very well result in some lower prices. And so be careful of that. Trail your stops. The charts are telling us there's a wide divergence from the moving average. There's gaps below the market. The volume is dropping today. The stochastics are crossing with a sell signal, and the CCI crossed with a sell signal after showing a negative price divergence on that CCI. See how powerful these charts are? And if you're not convinced yet, hold on, because here's Amazon, AMZN, talked about Amazon. Why? Because when people are too afraid to go shopping for themselves, they go shopping online and have the products dropped off on the front porch. And then they open the door, put their masks on. They go reach with their rubber gloves, grab their product, and they disinfect their box with Johnson & Johnson products and also Clorox, right? We talked about Clorox. Look at that. Stock hit the low on that day. Clorox, because people are using hand sanitizers, right? The world is still consumed by fear. Do not forget about that. This is not over yet, and there's still a lot of opportunity out there, folks. A lot of opportunity. We also talked about Roku, R-O-K-U. Why? Because there's a lot of smart TVs out there that have Roku embedded in them. So like Netflix and like Amazon Prime and all the other movie channels, you could watch television through your internet, and there you go. Look at that. On that day, we had a very powerful green candle right there on increased volume, and the stock took off. It closed on that day when we did the open house webinar. It closed at 97. It's now closed at $130.04. And be careful, folks, because that's an inverted hammer. That's an inverted hammer right there. That's bearish. So you got to be careful. Roku could easily pull back here. Now, let me first introduce our guest today. It's not going to be like a whole hour interview, but I want to really talk for at least 15 minutes if Dr. Billy Price could do that. We are going to talk about the health industry. We're going to talk about companies that are manufacturing drugs that could treat this coronavirus. We're going to talk about companies that are manufacturing pharmaceutical products that can help out. And while this is, and I got to make sure everyone understands this, Dr. Billy Price, his expertise is in pharmacy and in medical, as a medical doctor. That's his specialty. He is not a stock picker, so don't take any of this as a recommendation by Dr. Billy to make a buy or a sell. I just like to ask that you all remain open-minded and that you continue to think in a proactive way, because that's the way we have to approach this market. The fundamentals that a lot of investors normally rely on, especially for a lot of the Dow stocks, the fundamentals are not going to be as, I guess you could say, sensitive to the news that we're seeing and that the news that's rolling out almost on an hourly basis. There's a lot of false news. There's a lot of misconceptions. There's a lot of false medical claims that are going out there. Be careful before you start taking any kind of concoctions that you read about or heard about on Facebook. Be very, very careful, folks, because this is the serious matter here. And as investors and traders, our goal is to capture profits in order to protect our finances in economic downturns like we're going to see here in the near future. I mean, no matter what happens with the economy, the stock market is going to go up and it's going to go down. The fortunate thing for a lot of folks who know how to trade the market is that you could actually make money on the way down. So don't fear this, embrace it. Embrace it. Now let me go back and I got to find the attendees here. Let me see, Billy Price, where are you? Let's see, hold on, stand by, and I'm going to, right here, I'm going to unmute you right now. Dr. Billy, can you hear me? Just speak up and then I'll continue. Are you out there? Can you hear me? You can unmute your
Yes,
mic?
sir. I've got you.
Okay, good. All right. Now,
Yeah, I've
first,
got you.
again, all right, good. Now, everyone, to reiterate, I know Dr. Billy is a client. He came to me through Market Rebellion. Market Rebellion is a partnership between John Nigerian, his brother Pete, and Dirk Mueller, who I'm good friends with. And they have coaching programs that I'm involved in. And that's how I got to know Dr. Billy. Now, when I'm on a coaching call, we look at charts, we look at trades, we look at options, we talk about option strategies. Very similar to what I do in the mentoring program for a lot of you mentor students. And as I continued to speak with Dr. Price, I was enlightened by many different things that he was telling me, because again, being proactive, I'm trying to think ahead of where the money ultimately is going to go. Now, Dr. Price was raised by a mother and father who owned a family pharmacy in a small town, and his father had passed. He had gone through pharmacy school and ultimately wound up running the pharmacy for his family. Now, understand this. There are very few doctors that I know, and even fewer who I've gone to visit for whatever, physicals and the like, who I believe understand the pharmaceutical market as well as Dr. Billy Price does. And in fact, I will even go so far that Dr. Billy probably knows more about the drugs that are out there being used by doctors than the pharmaceutical reps themselves, along with all the side effects and everything else that goes along with that. Now, when time passed, Dr. Billy Price went to medical school and became a doctor. And so when we started talking about the coronavirus and talking about the symptoms and some of the so-called treatments that were floating around the internet, we were hearing about quinine mixed with zinc. That first came out, I believe that story broke out of Israel. There was a doctor that started publishing that. And a lot of doctors were treating their patients with quinine and zinc. And some of us even went so far to go out there and buy some tonic water, take some zinc tablets, and maybe make a little vodka in there and have a little party to cure ourselves by. I don't know. Again, that's just a joke, not a recommendation. There we go. Okay. So doctor, tell me, you and I in the warm-up, you had mentioned something about all the companies out there that are opening up all kinds of research. Could you elaborate on that? And again, as the folks are listening to you, I surely hope that they have their pens and paper pads ready to take some notes, because this is where we're exploring, folks. We're exploring in a proactive way. Just like I mentioned, tonic water, you know, when we went to the supermarket, guess what? All the Seagram's tonic water was completely sold out on shelves because of videos that went out there. So again, think proactive, take notes, ask questions. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Dr. Billy Price. Billy, go ahead and talk a little bit about what you and I talked about before we sit here tonight. Go
Thanks
ahead.
a lot, and welcome, folks. We there are, as of today, I've got 17 pages of studies that I've looked at, and the bulk of them are looking at the drugs that have been used in HIV therapy. So Bristol Myers Squibb has a drug called Azatinavir, ATV. Johnson & Johnson has a combination of darunavir and Cobasat, which are HIV drugs. AbbVie Pharmaceuticals has one called Kaletra, and these have had various and sundry effects, not to the effect what most have hoped. Chloroquine and hydroxychloroquine are old agents, and there actually were derivatives at some point of quinine from the structure. Quinine works in malaria by preventing the parasite from breaking down hemoglobin to live. So the theory behind why this is working in the coronavirus is really hard to grasp, other than the fact that folks that have lupus, folks that have dermatomyositis, or any kind of inflammatory condition that's autoimmune, more times than not, they're going to be put on hydroxychloroquine at doses between 200 and 400 milligrams a day. Now, the drug was originally put out there by Winthrop Pharmaceuticals. It's now manufactured generically by Mylan. So therein comes the Mylan recommendation from before. But the doses were like 200 milligrams once a day up to 400 milligrams once a day. In Wuhan, China, they saw, it was unpublished, it was in 100 patients. They saw that the folks cleared the virus from their system faster by taking this medication. And then when they added azithromycin, or the grocery store Z-Pak, as everybody's grown to know, that they saw even enhanced clearance of the virus. The downside of that is the combination of those two in the right patient can cause a very, very harmful arrhythmia, a heart abnormal rhythm, which could lead to somebody dying if there's not somebody there to shock them out of a rhythm. So those two things are out there. They've got studies, they've got randomized trials that Dr. Fauci is doing. They are generic. Mylan is one of them, okay? Azithromycin was made by Pfizer, but it too is now generic. There is a drug called Ivermectin, Ivermectin, which is actually a drug that's been used for lice. It's been used topically for rosacea. It's got an intestinal parasite. It actually, in the test tube, inhibits the SARS virus from replicating. So that's a Merck drug. There are numerous interleukins that have been used in rheumatoid arthritis, and this kind of dovetails back with hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine. These drugs have an ability to downregulate the immune system, and the virus sets up a tremendous amount of cytokines, which are small molecules that induce inflammation and destruction of tissue. And the biggest thing in the folks that have COVID-19 is they develop adult respiratory distress syndrome. Anybody in here young enough to remember Vietnam, during the Vietnam War, folks that had in shock trauma units, they got ARDS, and that was uniformly fatal. Well, this agent, because of where it sets up in the lower part of the respiratory tree, can induce adult respiratory distress syndrome. The mortality on that for years was upwards 75 to 80%. The interesting thing that I saw was that with proper management that we have now, which includes ventilators, modes of ventilation, and believe it or not, prone ventilation. So if you've ever been to the hospital and seen somebody on a ventilator, normally they're on their back. For folks that have ARDS, they do better lying on their stomach. The reason being the heart kind of moves away from the lungs and decreases compression. You can oxygenate them better. So prone ventilation has been very important. So in that vein, I've looked at some companies that make ventilators. Medtronics, MDT, RMD, which is ResMed, they make ventilators. In that vein, another company that's worth looking at, that a lot of these are at their highs, is Hillrom, which makes the special beds that allows you to ventilate these folks. So just thinking about
What's the ticker symbol on that?
Hillrom is HRC, I believe.
HRC. Yeah, there it is. Hillrom Holdings. There we go. Yeah, folks, what Dr. Billy said, he knows the technicals. Now, just because he's mentioning these companies doesn't mean there's buy signals on the charts. In fact, if you look, the stochastics of course with a sell signal has a CCI. So what I would do if I were all of you is I would put these on your watch list and then monitor the technical signals and only take long positions if that's what your goal is. Only take long positions when these stocks have hit support or hit a moving average or have given some kind of a strong buy signal, whether it be an engulfing pattern or something of that sort. So just again, we're recording this right now. For those who feel like they may have missed a symbol, I'm going to post this on the Market Guys Facebook page. We've never done that. We've never done that because this historically has been only for members only. But I think because we have Dr. Billy Price on, I think this is going to help a lot of people at least understand, even if they're not investors, understand that these companies and light bulbs go off in someone's mind who maybe could ask their own doctor about it. Maybe someone in their family is being treated or has contracted coronavirus and they're, it's always good to ask questions. Wouldn't you say, doctor, how many people actually, I mean, not the Google medics, of course, but how many people actually, as you've seen through your career, are asking better questions because of the information they have at their fingertips? You seeing more of that?
I think it's immensely important, and the big thing is to understand that what's in the press, be it Medscape or Google, learn the information, but have it vetted by someone who's actually doing that profession to know what's true and what's not. I mean, AJ sent me a video of a lady that was doing a YouTube on Diamox, acetohexamide. That's an old diuretic that was used years ago, primarily now maybe for glaucoma. It's also used for mountain sickness because of what it does with the acid-base balance in the body. And this person was touting as, you've got to get this drug. Well, she's wrong. I mean, all this drug did was alleviate a little volume or too much fluid, did nothing to the disease process. But she went on for, I guess, I don't know, AJ, 10 or 15 minutes about this particular drug, and it has no basis to be used in anything. In these situations where people regain fluids, any diuretic or fluid loss medication is going to improve symptoms briefly. And so, it's unconscionable to get out there and do a YouTube on something that you really don't know what you're talking about, I guess is a nice way.
It's actually dangerous, and it's that's to my point. Making sure that you're asking questions and you're not just going on YouTube or Facebook and following the recommendations of people who have no qualifications whatsoever in the industry. Billy, we have a question from Ken Bowen, And by the way, folks, questions are good. And then I have a follow-up to Francis, who I'm going to answer. But Ken Bowen says, what about spit tests for antibodies? Has anyone developed anything along those lines? And if so, are they something that you can rely on?
The salivary test, currently the new diagnostic test that we're using is not the deep swab that I was doing early in the course, when basically the flu swab as well as the COVID-19 viral swab, you basically had to enter the nose and push the swab all the way down to the vallecula, which is the little flap that closes over your trachea, and you were supposed to sample really deep, which was really uncomfortable and caused the patient to cough and expose you and them as well. Now there's a nasal vestibule, which is just inside the nasal opening, and swabbing there. There'll be a spit test. What's going to come probably by the end of May by both Abbott Labs and a few other companies is going to be the antibody test. The thing about the antibody test, though, it will not tell you that, it won't tell you that you're infected. It will tell you if you've had it or if you've not had it. People that have any healthcare background realize that the body makes immunoglobulins when it sees certain foreign proteins. And so what happens is the first antibody that rises is the IgM antibody. It's there transiently for about a month to 6 weeks. Following that, you get a big rise in IgG, and that's what you're hearing. Convalescent serum, or also called hyperimmune globulin. I'm old enough to remember that years ago we had no vaccine for hepatitis A. If you went to a restaurant and you got exposed to hepatitis A from bad seafood or whatever, the health department contacted you, you went to your doctor, and you got a large injection of immunoglobulin in your backside. And basically they pulled that immunoglobulin from hundreds of thousands of people and were able to isolate out the antibodies to hepatitis A, and that's the way we treated it. And so, having said that, that's what they're doing now with the recovered folks. They're isolating and seeing, did they have it? Have they cleared it by the infection testing? And then they're isolating these antibodies, and they're going to purify them, and they're going to administer them. And there's a study going on right now. It's in China, where they looked at folks that were gravely ill, and they gave them antibody infusions, and they actually reversed the course. Having said that, the main manufacturer of intravenous immunoglobulins is a company called Baxter Travanol. The symbol's BAX. It's also pretty up on it. B is in boy, A is in Alice, and X is in xylophone.
Okay, that looks a little overboard right now, but obviously that news has hit the market already. And again, to my point, it's I think these are good stocks to trade, especially for the option trades, but you got to make sure you're following the signals as well. Along that line of antibodies, Mannix Dyson asks, when can we reasonably expect to see a vaccine for COVID-19? I know there's a lot of controversy over that because of the time to market and all that with regard to the testing. But what's your opinion on that? Again, I'm not going to hold you to it here. Again, we're having an open conversation, but what do you think about that?
Well, they're actually, the initial trials of the vaccine are going on in Seattle, I think at Fred Hutchinson, and they're basically immunizing healthy volunteers, and then they're starting to measure the antibody titers and see what type of an immune response you get from that. And that's where folks have been following Moderna, mRNA, I think it is, AJ. Yeah, mRNA. Moderna, They were the ones that came out with the Zika vaccine. They also came out with the Ebola vaccine. There's a guy that was at Vandy when I was there. There was an infectious disease fellow, chief resident, PhD, brilliant guy by the name of Barney Graham. He is in process of developing this vaccine for COVID, and he's found that you have to freeze the viral markers in a certain position for the body to recognize it. So I think you've seen mRNA's got a big run up. So
yeah, it has. And believe it or not, even though it gapped up today, it gapped up on high volume with a bullish engulfing pattern, which is very interesting. I mean, I can't say this is going to go a lot higher, but obviously there's a lot of excited investors on this one, especially today. When did you hear about this news for Moderna Inc.?
it was I read Science every week, and Science the Science article was out 3 weeks ago. At that time, if you look,
interesting. Look at that.
It was hovering around the mid-20s, mid to upper 20s, and then it just took off.
Yeah, look at that, right? Another bullish engulfing pattern back there. I hope you don't mind these questions. I mean, I could tell a lot of people are getting excited. There's a couple of questions that came in about a drug that's being developed by Gilead Sciences, GILD, remdesivir.
Yeah, remdesivir. It is, let me pull that study up. Sorry to be a geek.
No, that's okay. We want to be accurate. Francis asked about this, and we had another, Ken Bowen asked about that, and there's a lot of folks asking about it, so that's why I brought that one up.
Remdesivir, of course, is by Gilead Pharmaceuticals. Here we go. It was used in several ongoing trials in moderate and severe COVID-19 in the US, France, and China. In the United States, it's been used in a randomized double-blind trial. And that's where you really get the best data, because you can select the appropriate cases if you know who got what. So the only way you can make real good judgments is to get numbers and not have the investigator, the patient, anybody but the biostatistician know who's getting what, because that prevents bias. But it's a broad spectrum antiviral drug that blocks the RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. That's a lot of technicality, but from the days of AIDS, AIDS is an RNA virus such as COVID, and the body has to take that RNA, turn it into DNA, substitute it into our own DNA profile, and then allows the body to make it. So what they're doing is they have these pieces of the RNA that don't have the proper linkage that they are using to substitute into this virus and get it to quit growing. It was in mild to moderate disease, and what they found was it has both activity in the test tube as well as in humans, and they had median follow-up was 18 days. They only had 53 patients, so it's not a whole lot, and there are more out there now. 68% had improvement in their oxygen levels. 57% were able to be extubated. So those 53 patients, roughly 27 that were in ARDS and dying, were able to come off the ventilator. 47% were able to be discharged, and 18% of those died. The issue about the drug is, number one, it's intravenous, and they're not sure if it needs to be given earlier in the treatment or not. So I think if you look at Gilead, it pulled off a little bit today, but it's still it's in a big trial in Chicago right now at Rush Presbyterian, one of the hospitals up there.
Yeah, and again, this is one that spiked up pretty dramatically. In just a couple of days, it's up $10. And there's a question that comes from Philip. What is the healthcare iShare symbol of Philip? I believe it is what is it? IYH, I believe. And now I have not done any kind of technical study on this one at all. This is iShare Trust. It's a U.S. healthcare ETF. So here we are rattling off individual stock symbols within this sector. You know, if those of you are looking to diversify a little bit, maybe this one, IYH, is something that you might want to put on your watch list. Again, look, and Doctor, I'm going to pause here just for a second as we look at some of the technicals. One of the things you could look at when you are adding info to your charts, let's say you have a stock like this that's run up quite a bit, and it goes from the low, and let's say we start to see a high maybe at this gap fill back here. You could use the Fibonacci retracement tool on your trading platform, and you could see that the 50% retracement level is right around 186. And what does that mean? For those who are brand new to technical charts, this is a tool that we use to determine price targets in stocks that have gone up dramatically or have dropped quite dramatically. And we look for pullback points, and 50% is a very common target. So here's a stock that's trading 212 that could very easily pull back to, between 185 and 200. So if you see a stock like that, so that the 185 level is a pullback, then you would set a price alert for when that price target is happening, and then you look for a buy signal, and that's the way you would trade something like that. So Philip, hopefully that helps you out with that. I have another question, Doctor, from Laura, who is a nurse in the healthcare industry here, and her question is regarding OPKP Health in Miami, Florida. Do you happen to know anything about that company, OPKP? Laura, is that a ticker symbol, OPKP? Let me just take a look here. OPKP. No, I don't know. Laura, if you could elaborate on that. I know this is kind of a long shot there as far as finding the symbol, but here's another question, Doctor, from Laura. Which company is the best, in your opinion, that's testing for antibodies right now? Is there a lot of companies, and if so, which is the one that you feel is the one we can rely on?
The one that's probably going to get the most press, and it's going to be the one that's going to get the most use, is probably going to be the Abbott 4000 machine, because it's rapid throughput. So the Abbott
Labs.
Abbott Labs. The other one I would look at, that for my own clinic today we were looking at, is Mckesson. Mckesson's going to have the antibody test available the 1st of May.
Okay, I believe it's is it MCK, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and what's Mckesson doing?
They're going to be rolling out the antibody testing May 1st.
Oh, okay. May 1st. Wow.
Yeah.
So basically what we're seeing here are pharmaceutical companies in the race for the big dollars. Because companies, whoever dominates in that space obviously is going to get a global market right there for sure. Now, Francis, you put OKTA. Let's see, is that what we talked about before? Let's see. OKTA. I don't know what company this is. This is submitted by Francis on the line here. And Laura has OPK as the ticker symbol here for what she was talking about, OPK. Oh, sorry about that. Let me get the right symbol. Doc, do you know anything about this company out of Miami?
No.
Okay. Laura, from a technical standpoint, That's a pretty big, strong candle, but you got to watch out. If you decide to get in on this, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 green candles in a row with a resistance point up here around 220. Whenever you start looking at stocks below $5, be very, very careful because they're usually low volume, low cap stocks that could be manipulated by big money coming in. So be really careful of that one, Laura. All right, I would say stick with the giants in the field and maybe even put some trades on using options. By the way, Laura is another one of my coaching clients, and I'll be speaking with her tomorrow. So Laura, we could probably talk about that on your session tomorrow at 3 o'clock. So hopefully that'll help you out. All right. Doctor, I want to thank you so much. And what I'm going to do is there's a lot of folks that are telling me here that they don't get in, they're not on Facebook. So what I'm going to do is, hey, Michael from Belgium, welcome. Right, you stayed up late for us. Thank you. All right, so what I'm going to do is I will send those who are asking for the link that are not on Facebook, send an email to me at aj@themarketguys, and just in the subject line, type in recording, just the word recording, and I will just send you the link to this recording so that you have it and that you will be able to take notes from it. Okay, so again, my email address is aj@themarketguys. Simple as that. If you want a link to the recording, just type in the subject line recording. You don't even have to type me a note. Just send a blank email in the subject line recording, and I'll have that out to you by tomorrow afternoon. All right, we'll have that for you. Doctor, I really appreciate your time. We went a little bit longer than I told you we would. I hope you're okay with that. I really enjoy the calls that we do, especially when we're talking option strategy overlaid on top of the information that you know. And it's just been a great experience. I can't even thank you enough. Thank you so much.
Certainly appreciate it.
Okay. Now I'm gonna mute your line once again, and I will go back to our audience here, folks. Okay, so now we're going to do the rapid fire stock analysis. We only have 17 minutes left, but if I do it quickly, we'll be able to go ahead and get through that pretty good. There were some folks that were asking me at the very beginning. Hey, Peter from where? Okay, Peter, and then we have Philip from Las Vegas. Welcome. What I'm going to do is take your stock symbols, and then when we get when we get to the top of the hour, I'll just close things up. Okay, so here we go. I'm just looking for the folks that typed in stock symbols earlier, and it's already washed through. So I'm going to go with Francis, and then I'll ask everyone else who typed in a symbol to go ahead and resubmit that. Okay, now Novavax Inc. is a symbol that Francis submitted. Now, just so you know, I am not a doctor. Some people call me a doctor of technical analysis. That I might agree with, because it took me 6 years to get that designation I put after my name. So that I will say technical analysis doctor. That's it, but not an MD. Again, self-proclaimed doctor on the technical analysis side. Let's not get crazy now. And Francis submits this. So while I don't know much about the companies and the fundamentals, I am going to analyze the technicals. See a stock like this, and again, Francis, pay very close attention. This obviously is a very strong and very long green candle. But what I would say is, even though the candle is on high volume, you have to look at some of the other signals. This long shadow up here is not something that I would take to the bank and say, okay, tomorrow it's going to gap up as big. This stock opened today on the low right around $19. It got as high as $26.34, believe it or not, but then closed at $23.80. So towards the end of the day, the sellers came in. Now look at the stochastics. Because the stock closed off of the highs, the stochastics oscillator turned lower. Had that stock closed on the high, the stochastics oscillator would have been still going up. And that's the importance of the stochastics oscillator, is that it gives us the stock's closing price relative to the range of closing prices and the range of the price action over the past 14 days. So you're getting a lot of signals. You got a wide divergence from that moving average. You got a high volume, which is bullish, but you got a bearish stochastics, and then you got a bullish CCI. What I would say is that there's a good chance the stock is going to start to pull back and possibly test this role reversal support level before going higher. All right. So if you're thinking about buying this because of a company that might be producing a vaccine or whatever they do, then make sure that you're following the technical signals, and above all, you're using risk management in the process here. Very, very important that you do that. All right. Hopping to David. David Silver, welcome. CVX. This is Chevron. Right. This, if you saw some of the news, the oil stocks are getting hit. There's oversupply because they can't even figure out where they're going to store all this fuel right now. The tankers are basically, floating out at sea. They have so much fuel. But, I drive a big Ford F-250 Super Duty truck. I don't see the prices coming down as much as I'd like to see them, but eventually I believe they will because of the oversupply. Now, looking at Chevron, you got to be careful because Chevron is an oil service company, and I'm going to go back to that, but if you look at OIH, all right, this is the Oil Service Trust right here. They had a reverse split, all right? The reverse split is why this gapped up. So be really careful. Anyone who's trading OIH, a lot of times reverse splits result in lower prices, lower, not higher. So be really careful. So going back to CVX, as part of one of the oil service companies, you got a gap above the market right there. You see that? So if you're going to play it from the long side, you got to expect that, okay, maybe it'll go up to 95, which would be a nice 12-point move, but you got to protect the downside. David, what I'm looking at more are stocks that have been oversold in the rally with support levels and those stocks having a good story. So I would say that you could probably find some better candidates. Just be really careful with this one because Chevron, if it starts going below that 20-period moving average, which is right around 76, that stock actually could go lower. And that's mainly because of the oversupply that we're seeing in the market, because their profit margins are going to start to shrink quite dramatically. All right, so keep that in mind. All right, Peter is asking about PCG. Let's take a look at PCG. This is Procter and Gamble, I believe. No, that's PG. PG&E Corp. I'm not familiar with this company, but technically, I'm going to show you something that's pretty interesting right here. This, my friends, looks like the beginning stages of what we know as a price pattern called a cup and handle. All right, now, Peter, I'm not quite sure you're familiar with that. Let's play that out. You have cup and handle, which this is more or less the cup. The stock hit resistance, which is called the brim. The stock is now pulling back. If this is a reliable cup and handle, we could most likely expect at least a test back up to the brim, which would be, that would be an 84-cent move on an $11 stock. So that might actually work. But the big buy signal comes when the stock breaks out over that resistance area. What I would say is if you're going to trade this one, be really mindful of the stochastics and the CCI, because both the stochastics and the CCI are heading lower. and there's most likely a support level right by that 20-period moving average. So it's kind of caught between signals here. You're not getting a driving force either on the buy side or the sell side. So I would be really careful with that one, and maybe keep it on your watch list and look for another stock that's in the same sector that might very well be giving you a better signal. Philip is asking about the Qs, QQQ. Yeah, for those who are new to the Qs, it used to be 4 Qs, believe it or not, and then they took the Q off. But right now, you'll see that my lines from the weekly market report are still on the charts from last Friday. The technicals are still pointing lower on this one, Peter. So if you're thinking about writing cash secured puts for income, I would hold off on writing any puts, because the last thing you want to do in a down market is to be selling puts. Selling a put obligates you to buy the stock, and buying the stock puts you at risk if prices continue to drop. So what I would say is wait for the market to pull back, wait for it to pivot, find support and go higher. And then if you're thinking about writing a cash secure put for income, I would sell way, way out of the money puts to do that. And I can tell you there's a lot of stocks out there that are giving really good dividends or synthetic dividends on these puts. But be careful with the Qs as well, because right now it's still showing signals that favor the downside. Okay, Dana is looking at USO. We had another client of mine looking at USO. Here we have United States Oil. And before you get all excited about buying this one, understand that US Oil is going to be in the same position as a lot of these oil companies, where they have an oil oversupply in the oil markets right now. So be really careful. If you have a stock symbol that you're submitting, then please let me know what your intentions are, okay? Let me know if you have a position or you're thinking about taking a position, and that will help me help you better, okay? So let me talk a little bit about USO. This is a very close to a doji. This is the only good thing I see on the chart right now with this one, is that, and I'm going to have to zoom in a little more, this is a doji that almost looks like an inverted hammer, has a long shadow above. But the fact that this is coming in on super high volume tells me that this might very well be a selling climax for USO. Now, again, before we get all excited and start buying this at 375, we have to back up and look at the weekly charts, right? What are the weekly charts telling us? Well, that's a 3-year low. We still haven't found support, right? I say this a lot, but this black bar right here is not support. That's the bottom of the chart. That's 0, right? So let's go back a little bit more. Stock over 20 years has found a support level. Guess what, folks? It's on a 20-year low. And the volume is the highest it's ever in a single month. And we're not done with this month. We still have, 11 days left in this month before it's over. And so that volume is going to be super high. If you're thinking about buying into USO, I would actually wait until next month, and maybe even go so far to wait until the end of next month to see whether or not next month candle is a green or red one, because we have 4 months in a row, 4 solid red candles in a month on the monthly candles here in a row. And well, that might be a stale red light. I would still wait until the end of May to make sure we have a green candle before I start buying in this one. Now, I think ultimately it could be a great trade, because USO also has options invested in it, right? So you could actually go out to 2022 for the option traders eventually. 2022. Buy a $2 call for $2.50, right? You can buy $2 call for $2.50. You know what? the stock in and of itself is acting like an option price. It's so cheap. But you can still leverage yourself in the option markets. All right. So be really careful with that. Make sure you're doing that on the technical signal. All right. Let's see. Brian said you have sent 3 emails with no reply. Very interesting. Brian, send AJ at the market guys. No dots in there. All right, AJ at the market guys. And if that doesn't work, I'm going to give you a backup, but try to use the first one first. My personal email is amonty, first initial, last name, amonty6944 at Yahoo. Brian, that's just for you. I want to make sure you get a reply from me. It bothers me when people send me an email and I don't see it. I want to make sure I'm helping you out. Okay, so Brian, that's just for you. Okay. All right, USO, we talked about that. Laura is asking, what is a great home builder to invest in? Well, Laura, I don't have a home builder per se that I've been looking at or analyzing, but I can tell you that companies that cater to home builders, especially the personal home builders, like Home Depot, all right, these companies are actually doing fairly well. Look at this. Now, we did not analyze this one on March 23rd. That would have been right here on this bullish engulfing pattern. But I did not have this one on my watch list because my idea was if everyone's quarantined, they're probably not going to go out and buy building supplies and start hopping on their roof. But I made that one. I went to Lowe's the other day. This is a competitor of Home Depot because I have a place in Cedar Key and I need a lot of supplies for our I'll call it a homestead. I have a lot of grapes. I have a greenhouse. We're building greenhouses and doing all kinds of stuff. I never thought that these companies would do well. But then again, guess what season this is right now? I should have known better. I live in Florida and it's still hurricane season. Today I actually wound up with almost 3 tornado warnings as a front was coming through. And they're talking about an active hurricane season. Well, guess what? Lowe's and Home Depot are companies that people gravitate to for generators, batteries, and all the like. So I would say, Laura, I think it's safer to go with some of these companies than to go with an individual home builder because I don't think that there's going to be, the way the economy is looking, I think we're in for a really rough next couple of quarters as the economy and the GDP numbers come out. I think the next GDP numbers are actually going to shock people. We already know they're going to be bad, but I think they could actually be a lot worse. So I don't think that's going to help the home builders. Okay, Mike has a position, he's saying, in GILD, and we talked about that with Dr. Billy. So I'm going to look at that one more time from a technical standpoint. GILD has gapped up. Now be careful. Let me read this here. Mike is saying I have position sell, I have half position sell or buy more. Okay, here's what I would suggest. I don't know where your cost basis is, but the stock yesterday, or I should say on Friday, hit that resistance point almost to the penny. Here's the big thing. If you're using the trader checklist that I provide for all of you, I'm going to pull this up, okay? Trader checklist. I actually submitted this in Miami when we were doing a seminar out there. Here's my trading checklist. I know I have it here. Trading. Oh, it's trading. Hold on. Trading checklist. I'm going to pull this up. All right, now I'm going to use this, and I'll close with this one. All right, come on, that has to open up soon enough. Trader checklist. Do that one more time. Forgive me. Trading checklist. Here we go. All right, now, if we're looking at GILD, you start with the type of candle. That is red candle. There's no doubt, and the candle has a long shadow above it. That's bearish. Okay, again, just looking at the candle on that, that candle is bearish. So where do we go next? We could look at the volume. Is the volume up or down compared to the trend? Well, the stock has gone up. Look at that volume. That volume is only 40% of what it was on Friday. Why am I getting all these alerts all of a sudden? So that is 45%. So that's bearish. All right, be careful of that. All right, what's the next thing? 20-period moving average. Where's the stock relative to that? The stock is showing a wide divergence from that 20-period moving average. That is bearish. What about gaps below the market? Well, yeah, we got a big gap below the market. Look at that. This gap wouldn't be filled until it hits right around 76, 77. That's bearish. I'll go on a little bit more. Stochastics, what are they saying? And what is CCI saying? Stochastics still going up, but look at that. CCI is going down. So the stochastics is not showing a bearish signal, but the CCI is. So if we go checklist, everything is showing bearish with the exception of stochastic, which is neutral. So again, Mike, you have a position in GILD. Should you sell or buy more? I can tell you that the checklist is telling you at least not to buy more, but what you do have, I would absolutely protect. I would absolutely protect. And where do you protect it? Because the stock is showing a pivot point here today with a lower low, lower high right here. I would put a stop right below today's low, protect your profits, protect against downside pullback. And then when the gap fills down here, look at the signals, go back to your checklist and when you get all those signals showing bullish, then you go right in and you take action according to what you're seeing on the technical signals. All right, folks, a couple minutes over. I hope you're okay with that. Again, the recording will be on the Facebook page. If you go out there and look at that, you'll be able to pick it up. If you're not on Facebook, send me an email, aj@themarketguys, and I'll send that to you and get that out as quickly as I can as soon as we render the recording. And again, I want to thank Dr. Billy Price for taking time out of his day to speak with us for almost a half hour. That's very valuable information. Dr. Billy, I'll be talking with you soon. And again, thank you so much, and everyone have a great night. So long.
This video segment is a small part of what the Market Guys offer through their educational products and services. If you are interested in any of our Trade Alert services, or you would like more information about our one-on-one mentoring program, simply contact us at info@themarketguys.com.